All right, welcome everyone. It is Wednesday. It is 4:30 p.m. ish Central Time. It means it's time for office hours here on the Academy. Today with a very special guest, Kent Agerlund, joining us from all the way over from Denmark. But let's
Sunny Copenhagen.
sunny Copenhagen midnight. Yeah, I hear you. But let's get this show on the road, shall we, gentlemen? Indeed, we shall. It would not be office hours without a shiny little trailer playing there. So, welcome again, everyone, and welcome for another episode of a little bit of updates, a little bit of Q&A in the end. This is where you can learn about what's going on in the Intune, ConfigMgr, and all the other related areas, primarily focusing on Microsoft infrastructure. But as we mentioned, we do have a very special guest here, Kent. Hello there.
Hello, and first of all, thanks a lot for inviting me. I've watched the show a couple of times, and I'm super thrilled to be here. So I hope I have something good to contribute with.
I would be very surprised if you did. I've heard you present once or twice before my time. But Kent, for those of you that don't know you, except that you're in Denmark, obviously, and it's close to midnight where you are. Thank you for staying up and joining
Yeah.
us. But what do you do?
So so what do? I work as a consultant, primarily in the endpoint management space, and I've been doing that for plus 20 years. I've been doing an awful lot of work with ConfigMgr. I still do work with ConfigMgr. Not as many new setups as I used to, but that's just because that's how times is. But doing a lot of work with Intune, with Defender, a lot of what we call modern transformation projects. That's where I've had my head for the last 2 or 3 years. And it's been super interesting because things are moving super fast, and they will literally never move as slow as they do today. So that's kind of fascinating, and just trying to keep up. And that's a full-time job.
Yeah, it's funny. We are doing an Intune course this week on the Academy, and that was basically just the comment from one of the students like, dang, it's moving so fast, having really hard time keeping up with all the changes. And yeah, it is. It is. The cadence is pretty high these days. I mean, if you go back 5 years, a lot of the work that we did was pretty much, as you said, there were config management implementations, and here and there maybe an Intune project. Now it's like shifted around, where either there is a
Yeah.
standalone Intune project, or there's a customer that is somewhere on that journey, thinking about, okay, for us, where should we go and how should we do it? And I was wondering, Kent, if you had like short words of wisdoms, what organizations, like a few things to think about and how to basically reason or think about doing this journey.
Yeah. So that's first of all, that's a really good question, and I just came out of a meeting today where one of my advice was you need to come up with a new set of processes that will allow you to fail fast. And then the manager was like, why should we fail? And that's the thing, as you said, things are moving so fast these days that we do not have the luxury of time as we did in the past to test everything. And here we can talk about drivers, updates to the operating system, updates to applications, update to the infrastructure. When working in Intune, let's face it, you do not own the infrastructure. But updates are being released to the infrastructure, and you will have to comply to those updates. So you need to change your way of thinking, And first of all, you also need to figure out, why should we make the move? If you cannot come up with a business justification to, why you should make the move, don't move. I mean, I'm working with new technology is obviously fun. That's what we do, and we love it. But when you work for an organization, you need to be able to justify it, right? And there are plenty of reasons why you want to make a move. Don't get me wrong on that, but you should know what is the motivation for doing this. What is it that we are achieving as a company? Will we be able to make more windows? Will we be able to sell more bread? Or why are we doing this? That's super important. Everybody in a project should know about that because then we have a common goal. Then another thing is, you need to have some guts. The technology is developing so fast. So if you have a project that will span for about a year, you might have a good idea about, what will it look like a year from now. But let's be honest, you don't know it because we have weekly change roadmap a year from today. It doesn't exist any longer. And I know we do have some roadmaps, but they are constantly changing, right?
So I had a little bit of hard time here in the last sentence. Did you experience the same, Andrew?
Guts.
Yeah.
So Kent, we seem to have a little bit of audio issue on the last few sentences.
That's super important.
Yeah, I think a connection issue, it looks like to me.
And then, have a process.
Let's see if I can get Kent's attention somehow. That's the beautiful thing about live streams.
That's right.
See if we can get. Let's try without the camera. If you can hear me. And I think we lost Denmark there for a bit, unfortunately.
Well, at least being live keeps things interesting. There's no doubt about that.
Oh, live is what can possibly go wrong in a live demonstration or a live? Let's see if we can. I'm gonna ahead and send him a old-fashioned text message and see if he sees it.
Sounds good.
Please reconnect without camera. All right. Don't you love this?
Like Ronnie in the chat said, Denmark is still online. Kent is not, I guess.
Yeah. I gave him a text message there, so hopefully he will see it.
All right.
Shall
we cover some?
Yes.
All right. I think we're on the same page.
For Kent to reconnect, Andrew, what's been going on the last 7 days?
Yes. So as always, there's no shortage of community contributions and news coming out over the last week. Happy to have you share my screen if you'd like.
Okay.
All right. That's fair. So a couple of things that I wanted to share today. We've talked about role-based access here plenty of times on the channel, but I caught last week, near the end of the week, Nicholas Tinner posted a new blog post on device management and role-based access control design using Intune and Azure AD. And one of the reasons that I really liked this blog post was that this is a special topic for me. I love role-based access control for many reasons, but Azure AD role-based access control beyond just the simple roles that kind of cover every object in Azure AD, admittedly has always been a little bit of a gap for me. So Nicholas actually does a great job explaining how you can control access to specific devices in Azure AD, rather than just saying device administrator. You have the device administrator role and you can administer every device in the tenant. So this is great stuff, and it has given me something to do with my Friday night this weekend. So kudos, Nicholas, on writing this. Yet another great blog post from you. Maurice Staley over at MS Endpoint Manager had a blog post about missing data in the OneDrive Sync app health reports. So these are reports that you may or may not know about, but they are in the Microsoft 365 Apps Admin Center, which is also contains the inventory and servicing profiles for updating Microsoft 365 apps on devices that are connected to your organization. Pretty cool stuff if you've actually never gone to that part of the admin center. But recently there was a change in the configuration in how to populate these reports. So this is a nice post on how to prepare the proper configuration, deploy it through Intune, and then if I scroll down here near the end, actually populate the report. And what this report will give you, if we just take a look at this screenshot real quick, is you'll have some details about the number of devices that actually have OneDrive sync errors, devices that are using known folder move, and version reports for the OneDrive client on the devices. So really great stuff here. Came across a blog post from Scott McAllister, who day-to-day works over at Patch My PC, but on his community blog here, or his personal blog here, wrote a nice post on collecting logs using Intune. So he goes a little bit of an overview of the collect diagnostics action that you can run in Intune. And also has a remediation here that will help you collect custom logs if needed. Say, for example, you're working with a user and you need them to drop some logs into a folder. Well, this particular directory right here does not allow users to drop data into there, but this remediation will help you do that if you need your users to assist you, or if you're just trying to collect some other custom logs from your clients. So this is really good stuff.
And we have good news. Mr. Kent is back. The question is, can he hear us?
I can hear you. Yeah, I can hear you. I have no idea. I think I can hear.
Welcome back, Kent.
Thanks a lot.
So just before we lost you there earlier, there was just a few sentences that we couldn't get through. You were talking a little bit about the journey organizations were embarking on what I needed to think about.
Yeah, absolutely. So just quickly to summarize here, one of the things I mentioned was, there is no way if you're running a project that takes, about a year, that you will know exactly what your environment will look like in a year. because things are changing so fast. I know we just had a chat about that. So that's one thing. So you need to make sure that everybody has the same vision. We know exactly what business justification, what are the reasons that we're doing this. And those reasons should, don't get me wrong. When I say they should never ever be technical reasons, they should be something that will actually move the business. Obviously, it will be technology moving the business, but we should use that technology to achieve our goals. That's really super important, and that's definitely different. And then another thing, when we're doing this migration here, it's not like migrating from Windows 7 to Windows 10. That's not my experience. So it's not a matter of just recreating all of the packages so they can run on the 64-bit platform versus our old Windows 7 32-bit platform. We need a brand new set of processes. You guys, you are super experts in OSD and have been doing imaging and can do that in your sleep. And you also know that we do not have anything called an image when we walk into Intune. So we need another way to handle the demands from our users, because how are we going to get those desktops out there? How are we going to get those laptops out there, and so on and so forth? So rethink. That's really a really good advice, and then have the courage to fail. And finally, there is what I have seen, a big misconception within the IT department, that end users are unable to do anything on their own, and they hate restarts. And the funny thing is, when we ask end users, they are fully capable of installing their own applications, and they do not care about restarts. Obviously, you always find one who cares, don't restart my machine. But the majority of end users, they have already bought into that. We know that we have to restart for security reasons and performance reasons and what have you. And as long as we don't do it 10 times a day, it's fine. Windows 10, Windows 11, when you reboot, it doesn't take 30 minutes like it used to. So yeah. So have a little faith in your end users. That's really what I'm saying, because they know more than we give them credit for. Yeah.
I quickly drew up a nice picture here of Kent as well in Microsoft Paint while we were waiting, but this is what it looks like on a good day. So
yeah, thanks.
But yeah, no, valuable insight. Thank you for that. We are often throughout these office hours, we spend like 20 some minutes talking about what's been changed the last week or so since our previous office hours. But since you're not joining us every week, have there been anything like, say, in the past half a year or so, update or change that you are like particularly excited about? Like, this is like, oh, fantastic, this was what I was waiting for or hoping for. Have you anything like that?
Yeah, so I would say there are constantly minor changes coming, like minor changes to the autopilot process that really helps us. Right now we're doing a big project where we are migrating existing autopilot profiles from existing tenants into a new tenant. And just all of a sudden there was an update here, I think it was in July and August, where we can remove the existing autopilot registration and so on and so forth. Little things like that really helps us a lot, because it means a lot for this process. And this technology now, when we talk autopilot, has a few years on its, I think, when was it introduced? Maybe 3, 4, 5 years ago, something like that. So now we're seeing, first of all, a lot of adoption, but we're also seeing, as I said, migration projects from one tenant to another tenant because of merger, acquisitions, or all of that good stuff, and we start to see the support for some of that, which has been really cool. besides that, I would say some of the changes that we see in Entra, in Azure Active Directory, in the whole identity protection, that's a big thing. And you might say, what has that got to do with Intune? Well, just like Active Directory has a huge impact when you're working with ConfigMgr, I bet you that Azure Active Directory, the whole identity protection there has a humongous impact when you want to have happy and productive users in Intune. There is, in my opinion, no way we can separate those two services any longer. It's one. So I would, if call out a few, that would definitely be the bigger ones.
Awesome. Thank you so much. All right, back to you, Andrew. I think we're like halfway through your weekly update there.
Yeah, just a couple more things, and thank you for all that, Kent. That's great advice. I came across a tweet from Jason Sandys that we now have the ability to block the consumer experience in the Microsoft Store app, which will block users from directly using WinGet to install Store apps. The cool thing about this, as it seems, there have been a couple of clarifying questions that have been asked on this thread, and it seems like this will still allow for the built-in Store apps to automatically update. So that is good stuff. And last but not least, not so much an update, because we're often, for the last few months, been mentioning something around the MMS conference over the last week over week. So I just wanted to point out again that we are about 74 days away from MMS Miami coming up. I know that there are still some slots available to attend the conference, and I know the three of us are huge fans of the MMS conference. So I wanted to give that a shout out as well. I don't know if either one of you want to add anything to that, but if you want to be on a beach at the end of October, not a bad move. And that's not even to mention all of the great content and connections and everything that you get attending this conference. So
I call that a good bonus for sure.
That's right.
Yeah. That's besides all the technical, which you will always learn something. You'll learn a lot. But as you said, Andrew, there will be new friendships there, and that's really one of the super cool things about a conference like MMS. If you play your cards right, I mean, you will have a 4-day conference, a 5-day conference, or how long it lasts, but you will have friends that you can use the entire year until the next conference, and that's what I have done in the past. I've met so many friends there that I can reach out to whenever I have a question or a problem or something. Sometimes you just want to share an idea with someone, and yeah, this is a great opportunity to meet a lot of fellow-minded friends.
To completely agree. I mean, that's you both know that's how I ended up where on this live stream today is from this conference. So it's awesome.
All right. Well, you guys were chatting a little bit. I was trying to play around a little bit with overlays in the platform and see if I could come up with something creative. Let's see if this actually works. I'm very excited about this. Test is going to be a good name. Let's see if this works. Live experimenting for sure.
It's the best.
It is the best. If I can type, it would be even better. Maybe. Look at that.
Perfect.
For those of you that just joined us recently, we were having some video difficulties from Denmark, but we solved it with audio only and an overlay picture of Mr. Kent. Yes, did you have any additional news there, Andrew, or were you done with your share?
No, that's it. I'm just wondering when you're going to start the livestreamresearch.com blog.
Yeah, that'll be a good one. All right, let me go ahead and share this screen instead. There we are. Get rid of that one. Nice. All right. So, for those of you who have been listening to us the last 2 weeks, we've been talking about a new update to ConfigMgr that was supposed to be great, that turned out to be not so great, causing a lot of performance issues, and Microsoft finally fixed it. So now, if I go into my tenant, I've been talking Intune too much. If I go into my ConfigMgr server, this updated update is now available. It was released yesterday. If you go to this URL here, can learn a little bit more about it, and we will share these links, of course, as usual on the channel. But I mentioned the issues that were solved, and now this one is re-released, so you can go ahead and update your site servers to this version. For those of you that installed the previous version, you're already seeing that they released the hotfix quite quickly for that one. So this one is just lagging a few days on the platform there. So friendly reminder of that one. I stumbled across on from our friends over at Patch My PC, their blog Patch Tuesday. Of course, it was Patch Tuesday a little while ago, but I stumbled across this one here under critical patches. There were some scenarios, well, basically a bug where Windows 11 sometime would fail to detect the right update, and Brian Dam shared this information earlier, so I just wanted to make sure that you guys saw this one, and there are some reasoning on why that may happen and what you can do to fix it, etc. down in this scenario, including some official responses from Microsoft folks or even Microsoft support folks. Another thing I stumbled across that I really, really liked was a script from Mark Hopper. I think he is with Microsoft these days.
Yes, he is.
Yeah, anyhow. Shorthand version, a script to help you find Intune devices that have not yet backed up their recovery key into Entra ID, aka or formerly known as Azure Active Directory. And finally, I stumbled across a video from Nicholas Tinner, once again. Andrew mentioned him earlier, but this is a good 20-minute video that takes you behind the scenes a little bit on how the Defender SmartScreen works. That feature, I thought that was a quite interesting one, so I wanted to share that one.
Yeah,
so that was...
I just, Johan, to comment on the previous script there, to find the devices that hasn't backed up their recovery keys to Azure.
Yeah.
That is a humongous part of a migration project. It's so super important that we think about, how are we going to get, rid of, if we are going to get rid of MBAM and whatever we have, because those keys will not just automatically, show up in the right place unless you do something about it.
Yeah, they are quite handy, are they not?
Yeah, they are. We had an incident during the spring where I think it was a C-level person for a customer whose key was not backed up in Azure AD, and that's not good when you need it.
Yeah. It's kind of hard to go into a meeting and have a productive discussion if you just know someone's PC.
Yep.
So Yeah, I hear you loud and clear on that one.
Yeah.
All right. I did see a good chunk of questions coming in. Would you mind taking the lead on that one, Andrew?
Not at all. So first one we got was a little bit ago from Imran on YouTube. Would like to know if there's a way to upload about 3,000 autopilot devices in one go. We've exported the CSV file from SCCM. At the time, we can only upload about 100 devices at one time. If I do recall correctly, I mean, you can add multiple devices, multiple hardware hashes in that CSV upload, but there is a limit that I don't remember off the top of my head.
I thought I bumped it up to 500, but I may be thinking. What I do know, though, is that you can absolutely script that operation.
Mhm.
There are ready-made functions in the PowerShell modules that allow you to upload hashes through a script, so you can just have a loop. It's going to take a while. It's going to probably take a good few hours, but that's something you can do. So that is doable. If you do hit these limits of the single CSV file, you can go ahead and either upload it multiple times, individual hashes, or upload multiple CSV files multiple times.
And if it's something you're going to repeat, and obviously this you're not going to repeat, but let's say you had 150,000 devices, reach out to Microsoft, because these limits here are not all of the limits, but often you'll be able to make a change to that specific limit in your specific tenant. That I've seen before as well.
Yeah, I mean, the various fast track teams that works with customers, they're usually quite helpful. So yeah, good call there, Kent. Reach out to Microsoft also, and they can help. All right.
Awesome. All right. Imran has another question. We have a PKI environment and use GPO to build the certificate to deploy the certificate to a newly built device. After the device is built, we have to wait for the GPO to work in order to get the PKI cert. I was wondering if we can get a package created for SCCM that will have PKI. They'll have the support. I have the cert, I presume.
Probably would need to know a little more about exactly what's going on there, because if it's a device-based certificate, how are you building the device? Is that being built from Intune, or are you building the device from SCCM, and do you have an index? How are you distributing the certificate?
He did have another follow-up comment that I missed, that he wants to be able to create that as part of a task sequence.
The only thing I've seen related to that, I saw one customer, they wanted that certificate to come down a little bit earlier, so they try to use various cert util pulse command, etc., to enforce it, but I don't really have more information than that. Wow, this one is a little bit tricky to answer straight out the bat.
All right.
Yeah. We just a little more insight would be nice, because there is, typically getting a device-based certificate, through Indes, that's not a problem. I mean, we get them distributed fairly quickly, but obviously, if you need the cert in order to pixie boot or what have you, then then that's another scenario.
All right.
All right.
So let's see. We've got several highs and hellos, some familiar faces in here. So hello to everybody that we missed a little bit ago. Thank you for joining us today. We've got a couple of questions here from Gareth and from YouTube. I'll start with the first one. Working at a customer that has Intune Sync, it's taking a long time to pull settings across compared to my lab. Should I make an MS support call, or is there anything specific to check?
Like the synchronization itself is taking a long time. I'm reading that questions like that.
That's how I'm reading it as well.
So I would say creating a support ticket is always a good idea, because you will get some insights, and then they will tell you if it's if this is by the book, or if there's something wrong, or what have you in with your tenant or in your area. But I've seen that recently. I saw it with iOS applications, for instance, where for whatever reason on some of the devices it just took forever, where on other devices in the same tenant, it literally came down within the expected 1 or 2 hours that we had. But we did create a support case there, because behind the scenes, it's a black box for us. We don't have all the log files that we used to have when working with ConfigMgr. And I like that the support team has to do a little work once in a while. So I would do both. But I would love to hear what kind of sync policies it is. And you do have some tools. There are some community tools like SyncML, which you can use to troubleshoot and see if anything is actually coming down to the client.
Yeah, we have that tool that we showcased a few times that you mentioned from Oliver, and we also have the Intune debug toolkit that we also showcased here a few times from Matthias Melkerson that have some diagnostics as well. So both of those can be quite useful.
Yeah, and he did have a couple of follow-up comments here. The sync is running, but settings and apps coming down are slow. Slow as in settings and apps coming to the device are really slow. And his second question was semi-related. Same customer finding 365 apps with XMLs taking forever to download the content, Office, Visio, and Project. Anything to check in terms of the tenant or proxy related? And
I mean, if the customer is having some sort of SSL inspection going on, and that is definitely something to look for. There are several URLs that needs to be open for Intune to play nice as well, and many other functions that are related to Intune. It's like 20 some different websites that it needs to talk to. We've seen some strange scenarios where customers are basically they are more or less not allowing the traffic to go through because of security settings that they have in their proxies or similar firewall appliances. So I will start there.
Yeah, I've even seen in like an IDS where one specific IP in the those 20 URLs that you mentioned are really 20,000 IP addresses, and I've seen one of those IPs get blocked, and it causes just strange, inconsistent slowness, things like that. So, excellent points, great advice. All right. Got another question here on YouTube. Any good documentation on deploying and configuring Teams with Intune? I need help finding a way to stop Teams from auto-starting. Anything that I can find on this has a drawback.
That's a good one. So you need to, now this question relates to Teams, but it could have been, any other product that we're trying to install, and we wanted to, not automatically start, or we wanted to do something specific. This is where I would also look into some of the proactive remediation scripts. So if you have a setting in Teams that you need to set, try one of the remediation scripts. That's what we have done over the, for so many years in SCCM. We have just been running a CI that, set everything correctly the way we wanted. And I would probably look into something similar like this here.
See a comment from your colleague there, Ronnie, mentioning that there is a DPO in the user space that will allow for that. and apparently a rich key. And that usually indicates that it's possible to set the equivalent from an Intune policy as well if you find one.
Yeah. And if it's a comment from my colleague, we should really just tell him to go to bed. It's way past midnight.
Poor Ronnie. You got told, sir. Bedtime.
That's right.
Yeah.
It does look like that same setting is also available in the settings catalog, but back to the mention of drawbacks, looking at... would you mind sharing my screen for a moment, Johan?
Yes, if I can find it.
There we go. Thank you. So here's the group policy that I think Ronnie's mentioning. But I did note this tip here in the documentation that if you've already installed Teams but you want to use this policy, enable the policy, then run the script on a per user basis to reset the auto start setting for Teams. And if you click on this script link, it takes you to another document that's not explicitly a script. So I haven't run down where that link was supposed to link to, but I at least wanted to show the group policy and some of the documentation that I found while we were talking. I will at least make sure that I've got this link available for today.
All right.
All right. So where was I here? There we go. Question from Tim on YouTube. Having an issue with Windows 11 and ConfigMgr task sequence where WinRE says it is not enabled. Tried out-of-the-box task sequence and referenced Microsoft recommended partition settings, but still getting the same error with WinRE.
That's nothing I've stumbled across, and I thought I've seen most sequence issues by now, but that one I have not seen. I mean, the only thing that comes to mind is to basically import a fresh image that hasn't been customized in any shape or form at all, create a new sequence, just the default settings, and see if you still get that error to try to narrow down where the problem is, because it's not a common issue. We would have heard about it if it was. So maybe start there.
All right. See, we've got some friends here joining us from the masterclass, that Intune masterclass this week. That's awesome.
That is impressive, because they've been listening to us since 9 a.m. this morning, and well, thank you for joining.
Enough said. All right, some good follow-ups, it looks like, here on if you want to deploy certs, back to the cert question a little bit ago. So I think that was Imran asking that earlier. Some comments in the chat about that. Let's see. We've got Michael providing some information and a question here on YouTube. Basically, North America to EMEA data center, 7,000 clients with some bandwidth information. North America to APAC data center, 8,000 clients with some additional information. Being told I may need secondary sites in these locations based on the values above. Is this a smart way to go?
So I guess here we are in ConfigMgr world.
Yeah.
I mean, you can definitely do that. It wouldn't be a disaster, but I mean, I wouldn't say So you have 7,000 clients in the European data center, and you have 8. I wouldn't say that that's a requirement. And I always love to start up as simple as possible, and as simple as possible would absolutely being set up the site system roles in the European data center that you need, distribution points, management point, and all depending on how you're getting your software updates. And I do not know if you're using co-management or what you're using in here, but I mean, back in the old days, I would definitely say you would need a secondary site, but these days here, you probably don't.
I would add two at the end of his comment here, Kent. I missed it at first, but it looks like 2 management points, 2 distribution points, and 1 software update point at each remote DC. So It sounds like those are in place, and that's what you're recommending, right?
Yeah. That's definitely a decent start. And then, as always, you need to monitor, performance and all of that good stuff, and then you can always add more resources a little later. And then I'm pretty sure Johan will chip in with it. Also depends on are you using delivery optimization? How are you utilizing the bandwidth and the peer-to-peer technologies that we have available, because that will also impact your setup.
Yeah, absolutely. Not so much in the management point area, obviously, but definitely for content distribution. A little bit of lab for peer-to-peer often allows you to simplify the infrastructure significantly and the amount of distribution points that you need. So that is close to my heart as well. Absolutely. All right. What else, Andrew?
All right. Jamie is asking here on YouTube, do you think we will have better monitor management coming into Intune, like driver management? We're seeing monitor firmware updates being required more and more. We need to monitor versions across our estate. Currently, the Windows API only lets you query as a user and not system context.
I mean, the shorthand answer is yes to that one. Microsoft is, I mean, the feature was just released and it's only been available since earlier this year, and the basic reporting started to come in. If you have Defender for Endpoint available today, the shiny version of it, you actually do have some good inventory of known BIOS and firmware issues for your devices. If you don't, there are some community reports from our friends over at MS Endpoint Manager that you can import workbooks that you simply add to your Intune tenant, together with a little bit of remediation scripts that will gather that additional info, so that there are solutions for it. But I haven't had any hard proof that Microsoft is working on that, but I would be surprised if you don't see additional reporting, because it's such a common request. And especially these days where security is not just monthly patches, it's not just third-party applications, it is also actual drivers and BIOS versions that are tagged with CVEs indicating risks. And you cannot just patch half of the machine, you have to holistic view of it. So,
and this is a great example of what I meant in the beginning of this chat here, when I said you cannot split Intune and Defender. You need to look at this as pretty much we need both, right? And also one of the other things I said, we need to change our processes. I know of many organizations where we would update our drivers, we would update our BIOS when we created a new image. It would be part of that, and then that's fine, because we didn't have any insights or very little insights into what was the security issues related to the old drivers we had implemented today. But now we have those insights, meaning we need to do something about it. I recently visited a company where we had a good chat about their exposure score and secure score, and we could see on the top 10 list, out of those 10 main security issues they had, 4 of them were related to firmware. There is no way you can just sit aside and say, well, that we're going to fix next year when we are releasing a new version of Windows 11. You need a process that will allow you to handle that. The cool thing is we have community tools that can do that within ConfigMgr today, and we also have new tools, as Johan was mentioning, just being released into Intune a couple of months ago in the UI, and we have had the ability to do that using PowerShell for a little over a year. But we need a process internally that will fix that.
Yeah, totally agree.
All right. We've got a YouTube question here. I have 2 AppX packages that have, or an AppX package that has 2 different versions at the same time. I want to remove only one of those using remove AppX package. Can you tell me how?
That's a good question.
Often that there are version information in the AppX packages, so you can definitely do a get AppX package version whatever, and then pipe it to a remove commandlet. But I was curious to what version that would be that would allow it to be true at the same time, because usually the UVP applications they don't do that very well or frequently. But that's all I can think of at the moment, to run a get command first with specific version information in the search criteria, and then try to remove only that one.
Yep. All right. Are there connected cache options for zero trust devices in a corporate building that trusts no internal networks or servers and all Azure AD joined? Want to stop hundreds of devices from going to the internet for updates and content.
Well, the only one that is actually released for normal enterprise organizations and not ISPs is the one that comes with a DP in ConfigMgr, and that one will act as a proxy for devices wanting to download content like Win32 apps, like updates to Windows itself, and other updates, etc., that are served through delivery optimization. So that's something that you definitely can put on your network. Now, that server, to no surprise, needs to have internet access, otherwise there will be no downloading. But the client doesn't need to have internet access for that one to kick in. The only problem becomes when a client is trying to reach out to Microsoft Update itself and try to find updates, because obviously if there is no internet connection, that's going to fail. I can't say I have done much testing on completely disconnected clients, but at least that cache server, you can use it today, and it will act as a proxy for the devices. And those clients do not need to be part of any legacy Active Directory domain or anything like that. You can have Intune-only clients that are getting updates from a cache server running a ConfigMgr. You can even have a fake Active Directory, just basically a domain just for the cache server. It doesn't have to do anything else. You don't have any users or anything in it. You just needed to set up that site server with the DP role, and then you enable the cache. It's a single VM that just have that functionality, or 2 VMs if you throw in a domain controller into the mix. Follow-up comment there, doesn't that require an on-premise IP address? Yes, that the machines need to be able to contact that distribution point wherever that distribution point is. I wouldn't recommend to put a cache server directly out to the internet. That's not the intention of it. So if that's the case, then it's going to be more challenging, for sure.
That is definitely one of the challenges around the whole zero trust framework. We don't trust anyone. We do not allow peer-to-peer. So we need to get content from somewhere.
Yeah. Yeah, to just a clarification there for a sort of follow-up comment, the clients do not need P2P domain joined to get content from a cache server. I have probably 100 clients in my lab. They are not joined to any domain. They still get content from a local cache server that I have here at home, as you do.
Of course.
Well, that's not simply not have a local cache server.
That's right.
All right. Did we miss any questions? So some replies to the question on Apex packages, people chiming in with some syntax there for the PowerShell script. Thank you very much for that. I appreciate that help. But other than that, I don't see any more comments. Oh, one came in regarding let's see what that one was about. Oh, it was back to the zero trust question there.
I think it relates to the fact that it's a distribution point, and the distribution point will be domain joined.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's
not the same as it. It requires a domain joined client to.
Exactly. No, the workgroup machines that I was talking about earlier, they were the clients. So the DP still need to have a domain to join, but that can be like it can be a standalone domain that just works as a cache domain. There are no users, no nothing in it, no clients, just that server. So that works. All right, but we are up on the hour. Special thanks to Kent to stayed up way after midnight joining us.
My pleasure. Fun being here. A lot of good questions. So thanks a lot for inviting me.
Of course. Yep. And thank you, Andrew, and thank you everyone that chimed in and listened to us and sent in the great questions. And we hope to see you again next week. Have a good one, everyone.
Yep. Thank you both, and thanks everyone for joining. Have a great one.